actually good.
6:30. And there were people into the stands.
Well, maybe it has, but you still have to, you have to put your name out.
Saw people gathering around, or somebody else did at about 6:30 for Charlie Daniels, an hour and a half in advance.
The signs cost so much money.
Oh, I offered it to him. I put 4,000 of that sign like that.
First come, first served.
Yeah, and I offered it to him for 15, and they wouldn't take it. I said, I just want to get rid of it. Here, $400.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay, cool. So my condolences that you have to work with Mike all the time.
Property manager.
Interesting.
I just got to go to the owner someday. But
They're
signs
so
are-
geeky.
The train went through.
Yeah,
They probably didn't call them.
I'm sure they didn't.
No.
Oh, yeah. That's big.
You'd think if you were the landlord, you want a little activity there.
There can't even be a tie.
Yeah, it depends on a lot of them. I mean,
It's too bad you can't sell a sponsorship.
No,
like
these are
you do
local.
with some-
Yeah. Actually, Somerville owns
That
it.
wouldn't fly, but still, it'd be good.
And Harlan didn't want a thing to do with it, so because that was her baby.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of times,
Good evening, and welcome to the Carnegie Town Hall. This meeting of the Planning Commission will begin with a few introductory remarks. The City of Sioux Falls Planning Commission serves as an advisory board to the City Council. It is the responsibility of the Planning Commission to consider and make recommendations on land use and zoning matters. Actions taken tonight on conditional use permits are final unless appealed to the City Council in writing within 5 days. And any actions taken tonight on final development plan design review or minor amendments are final. Any recommendations made on preliminary subdivision plan requests tonight will be referred to the City Council for final actions at the third council meeting of this month or at the first council meeting of next month if associated with a zoning or major amendment. Any recommendations made on rezoning requests, major amendments, future land use amendments, or ordinance amendments tonight will be referred to the City Council for final action at the first council meeting of next month. Council meetings are held at Carnegie Town Hall and are televised. The Planning Commission will first approve the consent agenda and then the regular agenda. In order to place certain non-controversial items on the Commission's consent agenda, Planning staff and the Planning Commission apply the following criteria. First, the request conforms with the Shape Sioux Falls 2035 Comprehensive Plan. Second, Planning staff recommends approval of the request. Third, there are no audience members present or written comments received in opposition to the request. And fourth, the application meets all conditions and requirements of the Sioux Falls zoning ordinance. For the regular agenda, the following normal public hearing procedure will be followed for each item. By first requesting planning staff to present a brief report on that item. Second, the petitioner or a representative will be requested to come forward and make a statement or answer questions. After the petitioner has spoken, anyone from the audience who wishes to address the agenda item shall be recognized. Then the Planning Commission will discuss the matter further and take appropriate action. We ask that anyone addressing the Planning Commission move to the podium microphone and identify themselves for the record. Please limit your comments to less than 5 minutes. As a courtesy to everyone here tonight, we ask that you please either turn off or silence your electronic devices. This meeting is being telecast on CityLink and will be rebroadcast Friday at 7 p.m., Saturday at 10 a.m., and Wednesday at 1 a.m. Thank you for your cooperation. Good evening and welcome to Carnegie Town Hall. I call to order this regular meeting of the City Planning Commission. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce to everyone here tonight and that might be watching, we have 2 new members on our commission. I'd like to start on my left and introduce Sean Irvin. He was a new member. This is his first meeting tonight. And on my right is Larry Lutke. This is also his first meeting tonight. So I'd ask the crowd to be gentle on these two young fellows. See if we can get them broke in correctly. I jest. Our first order of business will be an approval of the consent and regular agendas, and we will start with the consent agenda. We're being clerked tonight by Tamara. Thank you. It's good to have you here again. And if you'd be good enough to read the consent agenda items for us.
Okay. Item 1 is approval of July 3rd, 2013 minutes of the regular meeting. Number 2 is plats. Number 3 is 2013-0713 major amendment to Subarea S, Platinum Valley Plan Development District to allow a retail building located at the southwest corner of West 86th Place and South Louise Avenue. Number 4 is 2013-0716 major amendment to Subarea D, Diamond Valley Plan Development District to change subarea boundaries. Item 5 is 2013-0408 conditional use permit in the C4 planned commercial district to construct a retail store located at 5200 West 60th Street. Item 6 is 2013-0701 conditional use permit in the I-1 Light Industrial District to allow an automotive repair and service center located at 2724 West 7th Street. Item 7 is 2013-0706 conditional use permit in RS2 Residential District to allow an electronic message center as part of a permitted sign for an existing church located at 5001 East Madison Street. Item 8, 2013-0711 conditional use permit in the RS2 Residential District to allow an electronic message center sign located at 6801 South Grange Avenue. Item 9, 2013-0704 minor amendment in Subarea A of the Orchard Heights Planned Development District to decrease the side yard setback from 15 feet to 7 feet located at 2901 Old Orchard Trail. Number 10, 2013-0708 minor amendment in Subarea C of the Garden Village Planned Development District to allow parking in the required side yard setback located at 6908 and 7000 South Lindcrest Place. Item 11, 2013-0717 minor amendment in Subarea C of the I-29 Lake Park Planned Development District to allow off-site parking located at 4901 West Equestrian Place. Item 12 is 2013-0709 final development plan in Subarea D of Diamond Valley Planned Development District to construct a medical clinic located at 6215 South Cliff Avenue.
Thank you. Staff, is there any changes, additions to the consent agenda items?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, my name is Steve Randall with the planning staff, and this evening we have a request to move items 7 and 8 to the regular agenda.
That'd be items 7 and 8 to the regular agenda. Anything else? Is there anyone here in the audience that would like any of the consent agenda items moved to the regular agenda? If there's anything on the consent agenda that you were here about and have a question about, this is your opportunity to move it to the regular agenda. Seeing none, I would ask commissioners, is there anything on the consent agenda item that you would like moved to the regular agenda? Seeing none, would there be a motion to approve the consent agenda? And that would be moving 7 and 8 to the regular agenda.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to move items 1 through 6 and 9 through 12 of the consent agenda to approve items 1 through 6 and 9 through 12 on the consent agenda and move items 7 and 8 to the regular agenda.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? I would add, if we move those two to the regular agenda, those will be the first items then on the agenda this evening. All in favor will signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed? The motion passes. The consent agenda items have been approved. If you were here for a consent agenda item and it has not been moved to the regular agenda item, you can be excused.
Here's took care of Walmart right away.
Like half the crowd with them.
I forgot that they were in consent. It's just a formality.
We will now move, I would look for a motion to approve the regular agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Chair, one more time, Steve Randall,
sorry,
representing planning staff. We have two deferments that came in late, items 15 and 20.
All right. I would look for a motion to approve the regular agenda, and that would be deferring items 15 and 20.
I would so move.
Would anybody care to make the motion?
I will make the motions.
All right. We
Second.
have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion?
Weren't we going to move items?
Here, Mr. Chair, can I amend the motion?
Absolutely.
Great. Let's move item 18 to after item 14,
Ooh,
and then
okay.
item 21 to after item 16. Those are similar areas. It'd be probably easier if we can talk about them all at the same time.
So you would like to include, or in the consent agenda, or the regular agenda, you'd like to move item 21 right after item 16,
Correct?
and you would like to move item 18 right after 14.
Correct.
Second.
Well, somebody needs to make that motion, I think, don't they?
I did.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor will signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed? Are we back now to the main motion?
Yes.
Did someone make, I think, Mr. Pearson, you made a motion
I
to approve
will.
the
I did
regular?
not, but I will. I move that we approve the regular agenda as amended.
All right, would there be a second?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor will signify by saying yes.
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 Regular motion is approved, and we will start with item 7.
Item 7 is 2013-0706, conditional use permit in RS2 Residential District to allow an electronic message center as part of a permitted sign for an existing church located at 5001 East Madison Street.
Good evening, Steve Randall, planning staff. And this item is for Messiah New Hope Lutheran Church. The applicant is requesting approval to construct a 32-square-foot, 6-foot-high electronic message sign at 5001 East Madison Street, 7.29-acre site in the RS2 residential district, and the existing use is a church. It is in a developed area. There's residential development on all sides. Aspen Hills planned development to the north, RS2 single-family residential to the south, east, and west. We've given it a compatibility rating of 4, which means that there is minor conflict potential, and that's based on the requirements for a conditional use permit. The standard is that permanent identification signs, churches, schools, daycare centers, institutional and public uses in residential districts may have a sign not exceeding 32 square foot in area per frontage and 6 foot in height. The applicant conforms to that request in their plan. Additionally, electronic message sign displays shall be limited to displays which are gradual movements, including but not limited to dissolve, fade, scrolling, or traveling. However, sudden movement is prohibited, including but not limited to blinking and flashing. Staff does not have any information on that particular use of the sign. Additionally, electronic message signs shall be located on the site to minimize the effects of the sign. The sign face may be directed away from residences. Brightness and hours of operation may be conditioned on the approval. The applicant was advised to discuss the proposed sign with surrounding property owners and can respond to that at your direction. At the time of this report, we had no calls or information coming into us from the neighborhood. Sign brightness and hours of operation in this residential neighborhood should be considered by the Planning Commission, and as far as visual impact on nearby homes is concerned, brightness can be mitigated by the direction of facing and also by the hours of illumination. Because the applicant has provided clarity to indicate the location, nature, and extent of the work proposed and requires a complete plan check by zoning and building services prior to getting a signed permit, staff is recommending approval of the conditional use permit. Just so the general public knows or is aware, also a conditional use permit is for a use that is allowed in the neighborhood, and the decision this evening is binding. It's a resolution that takes care of the action. It can be appealed. However, Planning Commission action is forthcoming yet. And that concludes staff report.
Thank you, Steve. Would there be any questions for Steve regarding item number 7? If not, I would ask, is the petitioner here this evening?
I am John Nordley, representative from Messiah New Hope Lutheran.
Good evening, John.
Good evening.
Would there be any questions for John?
Chair?
Yes, Sean.
I would ask, how does the church feel about limiting the hours of operation of this sign with the residential area directly across the street?
We really have no problem turning the sign off later in the evening until morning. That's not a problem. And we've talked about doing that, so.
Okay. Well, I think it is, Chair, within our authority to assign those times specifically just to consider the neighborhood impact and those kinds of things. And I would suggest that we look at a 10:30 p.m. to 6 a.m. off time for that particular sign. Should the church decide to leave it off longer than that, that would obviously be at their option.
Sean, when we get done with discussion, if you'd like to make that motion,
Okay.
Hopefully you'll get a second. We'll be able to have a little discussion about it and see how everybody wants to proceed.
Sounds great. Thank you.
John, is there anything else you would like to add?
Not really. The sign would be located in the northwest corner of the property. It would be, it's about a city block from anything to the east, and everything to the west is a church, that would be impacted by the sign. And everything to the north is the backyards of all the property owners. So.
You were advised to maybe visit with some of the surrounding property owners. Did you do that? Or?
We went to the churches next to the church, and we had a tough time visiting with the Lutheran church because there's a small Lutheran church that is a block to the west, and that's very difficult to find anybody there. So, and even on a Sunday morning, we couldn't visit with anybody there. The Catholic Church, St. Therese, was no problem, and I know that the information was given to the priest.
Thank you, John. We'll see if anybody else has any comments on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for John? Thank you, my friend. Is there anyone else here this evening that would like to make any comments on item number 7? If not, the chair would look for commission action.
Mr. Chair, I would make the motion that we approve this application with the stipulation that the time of turning off of the sign would be from 10:30 p.m. to 6 a.m., 7 days per week.
Would there be a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Just a quick question, Sean. When I was in business, I had a sign that I always adjusted the time when daylight savings time came, because I didn't want to have it not lit when it got darker earlier. If you fix the time at 10:30, then it'll stay the same whether it's daylight saving or not. And I don't know if that's a big issue with the church or not. I just bring that up as a matter of fact.
And I guess my thoughts around it would be that by limiting the time to a specific time frame, it's more related to people's potential sleep schedules and things like that, since the backs of these houses are typically where the bedrooms tend to face. That's part of where the concern comes from. And the time frame is short enough that I believe it isn't really affecting the church's ability to advertise what is going on within the church. And specifically, I think this is tied more to the electronic message center, whereas the other sign, if that is lit, probably isn't necessarily tied to the electronic message center.
I don't have any objection to the 10:30 time. I just wanted you to be aware that 10:30 in September is, or June, is going to be almost daylight. At 10:30 at November, it's going to be dark.
Mm-hmm.
Sean, let me ask a question. Is there a way to put these on a timer?
Yep.
I mean, so that there's not a physical turning it on and off?
Yes, there is.
Yep. That's what mine was.
And it's nowadays with all the technology, a lot of them automatically reset for daylight savings
Sure.
time.
That's true. I was in the dark ages.
Do we have a concern about daylight savings times, guys? Do we need to amend it to address that?
No, I don't have a concern. I just brought it up for discussion.
We have a motion. We've had a second. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor will signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed? John, motion passes with a 10:30 to 6 o'clock timer. Well, that'd be 10:30 p.m. in the evening to 6 o'clock in the morning a.m. Okay. Let's move on to item number 8.
Item 8 is a 2013-07-11 conditional use permit in the RS2 residential district to allow an electronic message center sign located at 6801 South Grange Avenue.
This is a similar application. It's for Journey Elementary School. Brett Menke is from Pride Neon is the applicant. And the applicant is requesting approval to construct a 32 square foot, 6 foot high sign, electronic message. This is a larger site, 15.69 acres, in a RS2 residential district with residential neighborhood on all sides. It is currently developed as a school. And we did give it a compatibility rating of 4 again, because there is a possible impact on the neighborhood or incompatibilities. The requirements are the same for the conditional use permit standard as previously mentioned. Permanent identification signs are allowed. Electronic message signs are also allowed. Conditions may be placed on the electronic message sign as far as its location to minimize the effects of the sign face may be directed away from residences, and brightness and hours of operation may be conditioned. This particular sign is proposed to be a 2 foot by 6 foot 9 width, a 2 foot 9 by 6'9" message center, and the sign is 6 foot in high. It's at the southeast corner of the property. The applicant was also advised to discuss the proposal with surrounding property owners, and at the time of this report, we had no calls from the neighborhood. Sign brightness and hours of operation in this residential neighborhood should be considered. Zoning staff will confirm that the sign meets the size requirements when they come in for their building permit, and because this application has provided clarity to indicate the location, nature, and extent of the work proposed, complete plan check by zoning and building services prior to obtaining a building permit, staff is recommending approval of the conditional use permit. And again, the requirements for a conditional use permit are the same. It's an allowed use. Under what conditions is it allowed? It's a resolution. The action tonight is what takes place unless it's appealed. And it does have to conform to the zoning standards and regulations that are in the ordinance right now. We're not approving something that's not in conformance with the ordinance. We're just simply considering conditions for approval. And that leaves it to the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions for Steve? Seeing none, I would ask, is the petitioner here this evening?
I'm Brett Menke with Pride Neon Signs.
And I'm Jennifer Kaler. I represent the Harrisburg School District.
Brett and Jennifer? Thank you for coming tonight. Is there anything you'd care to add to staff's report?
I will throw in, I will say that a similar sign was approved by and signed off by Mike Cooper. It's going over to Explorer Elementary, the school district to the west of Journey, also in town. I think that was in a planned development, so he had the power to approve that. It's an identical sign.
Thank you. Commissioners, would there be any questions or comments for Brett?
Chair?
Sean?
I would ask the same thing that we asked of the last petitioner. Would you have objection to limiting the hours of illumination of the sign? Say that it went off about that 10:30 time frame to the 6 a.m. time frame. Again, concerned with neighbors and that potential constant moving sign going throughout the nighttime being visible from bedroom windows potentially. Do you have any objection to that?
No.
Okay.
Well, this is going smooth. Thank you. Any other questions for these two? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address item number 8? Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Mike Cuno. I live adjacent to Journey Elementary, and I guess I just had a couple questions. One is the sign just single-sided? Yeah. So it'd be a single-sided facing Grange Avenue?
Correct. Facing traffic driving into the driveway.
Okay. Yep. Okay. And I guess I live on the back side of the sign, so that's not as much of a concern. But I would still, I guess I would ask that the timing at night be, the shut-off time be pushed up a little bit. Most of the activities at the school are over by 8 or 9. And I know that there are a lot of kids in the neighborhood that have an earlier bedtime than 10:30. So I would ask that you guys consider an earlier time, whether it be 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night for the shut-off. Thank you.
Mike, thank you for coming down tonight. Anybody have any questions for Mike? Is there anyone else that would like to address item number 8? Seeing none, the chair would entertain a motion.
Go ahead.
No. I guess we need to call the petitioner back up to see if that is acceptable too. If we do change the time, they just agreed to the 10:30 to 6, and now if we make that stipulation of a different time than that, we should probably talk to the petitioner
Jennifer,
on
would
this.
you mind coming back up?
So I'd like to call the petitioner back up, please.
Too short for these microphones. I apologize. I guess in There you are. You know, I guess my only concern, and it's not really a concern because we obviously want to address the concerns of our parents and families. We are planning on putting these signs at every one of our school buildings. So if we had various times that we were allowed, it might get kind of confusing. But again, we would certainly, you know, we certainly want to take that into consideration. This sign is not necessarily facing any homes. It's going into the entrance of the school where we already have and comply with the lighting and so forth with the parking lot. And we certainly aren't going to make a loud Vegas sign by any means either. I personally would say that, you know, 10:30 would be appropriate, but again, you know, we're certainly willing to do what we can. Our main focus is to communicate with our constituents and let them know what's going on in the district. So if that's what they choose, we would certainly comply.
And I have gone through this process a number of times with similar situations, and the 10 to 10:30 time seems to me has been consistently followed over the years, and I really don't see any special exception. I live in the school district as well. My kids go to Journey, and you know, that sign there, it faces backyards, and really the size of the sign, the brightness can be controlled a little bit. I don't think it's going to have any impact whatsoever if it's on until 10 o'clock, 10:30.
So
Thank you, guys.
as a would 10 o'clock be okay then?
I think that would be very appropriate, yes.
10 o'clock. Yeah, it's her decision.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
I can't say I have the decision, but, you know, I think in our discussions of building the signs, of course, we don't want to interfere with any lifestyles. We just want to be able to have a form of communication. So whatever, you know, the council feels appropriate, we would absolutely follow. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
For 10 then?
Any other questions for anyone? You know, I would make a comment. I think the only thing we better be a little careful of is if we set a example or a time, I think we need to set it so that staff knows when they're talking to folks down the road as more signs come on board. Hey, here is what the commission has done in the past. And I say that that other one we approved at 10:30, and that's fine. If we want to go with 10, that's fine. But as she said, there's other schools coming. Other schools are going to have signs. I think we should have some uniformity for staff's sake as far as timing.
Although, Mr. Chair, I would think that this wouldn't necessarily set a specific precedence. I think that this is tied to the specific neighborhood and the specific concerns of that neighborhood and the attempt for this owner to comply with some neighborhood requests. So I think each and every time may be totally different. It's all tied to what this particular site demands of this particular option.
Okay. Chair would entertain a motion.
Want to go for it? Go for it. Mr. Chair, I would recommend I would make a motion to grant this approval with the condition of the illumination time be stopped at 10 p.m. and started again at 6 a.m. so that it is off during those particular hours, and that it would apply 7 days per week.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor will signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. Let's see, that was 8. We will now go to item 13.
Item 13 is 2013-0710 rezoned from the RD Residential District to the I-1 Industrial District for allowed uses located at 2811 and 2901 West Madison Street.
Planning Commissioners, Jason Bieber, City of Sioux Falls Planning Office. This is a request by Dieter Prohl to rezone from the RD Residential District to the I-1 Light Industrial District for allowed uses. It is located at the southwest corner of West Madison Street and North Harlem Avenue. The applicant is proposing to rezone roughly 4.01 acres zoned RD residential to the I-1 Light Industrial District for future development of the property, from the existing greenhouses to light warehouse uses. The proposed I-1 Light Industrial District would allow the existing greenhouses and future redevelopment of the light warehousing. The current use of the property is light industrial. The existing greenhouses have 2 accesses on North Helen Avenue and 1 off of West Madison Street. The subject property is relatively flat and improved with several large greenhouse-type buildings. The subject property is located within the West Sioux Neighborhood Conservation District. Proposed zoning of this property in this neighborhood is consistent with previous approved developments in the immediate vicinity for light industrial uses. Further, the greenhouse's indoor warehouse use has been on the subject property for many years. The existing residential neighborhood has been reduced in size in the past years from 198 residential lots to 126 residential lots by street vacations and industrial zonings within the vicinity. While the impact of the non-residential traffic in the neighborhood can be reduced by limiting industrial site access to peripheral streets away from the neighborhood and focus them onto West Madison Street and North Helen Avenue at the time of the redevelopment of this property. The submitted plan is complete for review by the Planning Commission, and because the subject application is consistent with the Shape Sioux Falls Comprehensive Plan and the light industrial use of the property has been established for many years, staff does recommend approval of this rezoning. And this is a rezoning application. Rezoning shall be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Rezoning approvals or denials are ordinances and will be sent to the City Council for a first reading and a public hearing. And that concludes staff presentation, and I'll answer any questions you may have.
Would there be questions for Jason in regards to this particular issue? Jason, I've got a couple. When I look at light industrial and what's approved under light industrial, I'm taking it out of our ordinances. It talks about permitted special uses. And a permitted special uses, it talks about a building or premises may be used for the following purposes in the light I-1 light industrial districts in conformance with the conditions prescribed herein or by obtaining a conditional use permit for such use in conformance. I'm wondering what confirmation, what are the conditions prescribed herein? In other words, if someone wanted to build warehouses there, does that individual need to get a conditional use permit or not?
If a gentleman would propose to build a warehouse or a mini warehouse at that subject location, the condition for that, for the permitted special use, would be no hazardous materials should be stored on the premises in quantities of excess of those exempted by the building code and the fire code. So essentially, as long as you're not storing hazardous materials, you'd be allowed to construct a warehouse on the property.
Without a conditional use permit?
Without a conditional use permit.
Does the size of the development make a difference as far as conditional use permit? If a building is a certain size, let's say a warehouse, does that trigger a conditional use permit?
The only thing that would trigger a conditional use permit is if you had hazardous materials stored in there that are above the building or fire code.
If you have a site of 4 acres, would you have to provide drainage and a BMP as far as water collection and such like that?
I can't speak to the drainage, but at the time of the building permit, those issues would be looked at by the drainage engineering department, and they would be coordinated with them.
Well, there's a certain size that triggers that, but I'm thinking, and maybe it's commercial that does that, and that's what I'm not quite sure about.
That I'm not sure offhand.
Seems like if there's something over an acre, it triggers. You've got to provide storage for the water that you might create as far as a runoff. But once again, I think that depends on what you're going to do in the development, I suspect. Thank you. Those were some questions I had, and I've got another question, but I think I'd like to direct this one to Jeff, because I know Jeff's an expert at this. We have had great discussion, and as a planning commission and council, we've approved different zoning ordinances, or Shape Sioux Falls. That's been put on hold till April. There's going to be a vote as to whether that to be in effect or not. I hate to dwell on something that might or might not happen, but I think when it comes to rezoning, I think it does become an issue, because my thought is if it's passed, I know you and staff will sit down and look at, well, what is something currently zoned? Mm-hmm. It then becomes that zoning, I believe, in the future. When I look at I-zoning, there are a lot of things that could be done there with a conditional use permit under that type of zoning. The things that can currently be done with the conditional use permit, do they become automatic to be done under the new zoning ordinance?
Okay. It's a good question, but the answer would generally be no, they would not be allowed to be doing that. Okay. What Mr. Dunlap's referring to is there's a zoning ordinance out there called Shape Places that's been referred to the public to vote on in April. Mm-hmm. We are in that proposed ordinance stating that we're going to remove some of those conditional uses, so there's no longer a public hearing. What we're supporting instead is to require laws to back up the conditional uses. So very similar to what you just saw in that information that was up there, is saying you can have a storage facility, but you cannot have hazardous material in there. Don't put conditions and say, just let's go up to a public hearing. You just can't have hazardous materials in storage. So those are the types of conditional uses we got rid of. So your question really is, what about all the additional conditional uses? We just eliminated them and just said they're just not allowed. You have to either meet the law or you can't do them. So in this case, to alleviate some of the concerns that the neighbors would have, you are really speculating. Let's not get the neighbors concerned about, well, yeah, what happens in April? Right now, Steve, go up to permitted special uses. This is the list of types of things that they could have out there, very similar to what's generally in the area right now. The applicant isn't stating publicly what he has proposed. He wants to market it and see what the market will bear, and we have to consider just about anything that could possibly go up this area along Madison Avenue. And if staff or if the Planning Commission thinks that's appropriate to have industrial uses up there, please vote for it. If it's not compatible with the comprehensive plan, it doesn't meet the zoning ordinance, then you should deny it.
Jeff, I watched last night, there was a lot of discussion about buffering.
You're right.
And that was a big deal in getting the zoning done on Walmart last night.
Correct.
And I know that the compatibility here is very low when we go to our compatibility chart, but I thought you said something really well at that point. Doesn't mean it can't happen.
Right.
But it might mean that we might require some special things to happen to soften that between I-1 and residential. And you talked about maybe some additional landscaping, some berming, such like that. You haven't addressed that in this. I think staff is just going, hey, plain, hey, we know there's residential next door, but give me some thinking or some reasoning why staff is in favor of doing light industrial right next to this residential neighborhood.
Certainly. Again, the challenge we had last evening, which we have every day right now, is the proposed zoning ordinance is not in place. Okay? Those protection clauses that we wanted to build in are not in place. The only thing that you have to base your decision on is what is the law in place right now. And therefore, we stated in the comprehensive plan we would like to see transitions and buffers from these property owners. However, there's no law or authority to tell a property owner they have to do a good job on their proposals. There's no standard or law out there that says you need to do a better job. The 1983 zoning ordinance just says, go ahead, you have a property right, develop it. So on this case right now, it's a greenhouse. It's next to a river and an arterial roadway and industrial, and he has a property right basically as a land use as a greenhouse to keep it as industrial. So that was our staff recommendation versus the other option that we kind of looked at is should it go revert back to residential? Would a greenhouse land use be more appropriate to be residential? And we didn't think it would make more sense to go that way. Again, from a planning perspective, when you look at the zoning map, Steve, this is really a lot that we have to look at. You have Harlem Avenue and Madison Avenue, and you have the blue and the orange. Harlem Avenue really probably becomes the best buffer and transition. We have another item right below after this with another application looking at Second and Harlem. And if Harlem and Second kind of becoming the dividing line, you have all that blue to the south and west. If that becomes blue, everything to the north and east has to stay orange. That's the dividing line, and I think that's kind of how I looked at it from a planning expert, to say orange just, that residential just doesn't work south and west of Harlem, but it does work north and east, and that's where we'd like to draw that dividing line.
Jeff, there's been a nursery there as long as I can remember.
Which is a long time.
It's zoned RD. So obviously, many, many years ago, do you know when that was originally put in there? Or?
Well, I don't know if we had that in the staff report. Some of the neighbors here probably remember when it, I'll refer to.
Probably not important, but somehow it got started.
Yeah, the greenhouse has been
and all of a sudden, there it was.
Yeah.
Jeff, thank you for coming up. I know.
If there's other questions, again, when the neighbors get up here,
please. This has been in my
please.
mind all day, and I would just needed some clarification for that. Thank you. Is there anyone else here this evening that would like to? Oh, is the applicant here? Thank you.
I'm Dieter Kroll, owner of 2811, 2901 West Madison Street, which I requested to be rezoned from RD to I1. First thing I'd like to say, the greenhouses probably existed before they ever had zoning in Sioux Falls. I don't know how they ever got to be residential. I thought maybe they would have been ag or something like that. And I don't think anybody's going to want to build any houses there. The last house that sold in December went for $27,000. I knew the guy that had it, and I know the guy that bought it. And the daily vehicle count in that area is like 12,000 vehicles. And I'd say 10-15% might be trucks, maybe more, I don't know. And if you go out there on a windy day when the wind comes out of the northwest at 20 to 30 miles an hour, you should see the rock dust there. I've had buildings there since 1973. And, you know, the way the dust is out there, I don't think anybody would ever build a house, you know, in that location. I mean, the traffic is just too heavy, and the location just isn't a residential area. Now, there's residential next to it, but I'd say in the coming years, those residences will probably be gone. So.
Dieter, was that your greenhouse? I mean, did you use that as a greenhouse, that property?
No, I'll tell you, I bought them from a company in Wisconsin that had bought the Hebert business. See, they still have their greenhouses in Ellis, and they're operated by the company from Wisconsin. So they just wanted to get rid of them in November, so I bought them.
Oh, okay. Would there be any questions for Dieter? Dieter, I think there might be some neighbors here tonight. I think the thought is, with an I-1 zoning, what your intention is. Do you have something in mind that you specifically want to do with this property?
I don't have anything specifically in mind, but it would be some kind of warehouse type. I have all the buildings to the south there and to the west, to the river, and it's that type of, that's the only thing I can envision, you know.
I don't know
You've
what
got
else.
property there, you've got warehousing now. What you envision is adding
Yeah.
on to
Yeah.
your warehousing as you,
Yeah, I got like 7 buildings there, or 8, and they kind of go to the south and to the west. And it'd be that type, it might be, I'd say probably that size. It might be from about 8 to 16,000 square foot in a building.
thank you. Thank you for coming down this evening.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here that would like to address this particular issue?
Hi, my name is Rick Larson. I live at 900 North Harlem. I've lived there for 31 years. I live right to the east of the greenhouses. I really don't have a problem with changing it to light industrial. My main concern is the truck traffic. We had a new building built on the corner of 2nd and Kiwanis, and our street turned into a major highway with semis, trucks hauling dirt, gravel, between 20 and 30 a day. Plus now we have trucks hauling freight in. We addressed that when that come up. It's not made for truck traffic. I would like to see the back of the building, if that was put towards Harlem, so no traffic, or if it's an empty parking lot so the lights at night couldn't shine in our house. I mean, if the building was, the backside of it was whatever the setbacks is there for Harlem, if it was there, so everything went out Helen and Madison Street, a nice building, something that looks nice. I mean, that truck traffic, loaded trucks going down that street they're not made for that. That's ridiculous. But I have no problem with the light industrial.
Did you say Rick? Was that?
Rick Larson, yeah.
Okay. Would there be any questions for Rick? Rick, I appreciate you having come on, hang on a second, coming down and visiting with us tonight. It's been some of your concerns, have been some of my concerns. What we're dealing with, though, is a rezone. And if we rezone it, we really don't have any input as to, once the zoning's on it, if and when it happens, we don't have a lot of flexibility of how it happens. And that has been a concern in my mind, and I just don't know how to address it. It's a tough piece of property.
I was told by the city council when we went in front of them that there's an ordinance that says truck traffic can't go down these. So if it comes an issue, I was supposed to call in. So I called the sergeant of the traffic unit, and he was supposed to talk to the engineering department and get back to me. I've never received a phone call to this day, so.
Would you be good enough to give your name and number to Steve right there, and we'll see that. And your question is by ordinance, can freight trucks?
That's what they told us, that there was an ordinance that freight trucks could not travel them residential streets.
I wouldn't know, but if he gets your name and number, he can find out or have the person that knows give you a call. Yeah, I would think it'd have something to do with weight, but, they can.
Well, yeah, because
they can clarify that for you.
I mean, First Rate hauled all the sand and gravel and all that into that corner there, and I mean, they were using semis, they were using straight trucks. We had a semi one day come from Sweetman's with a big trackle on it, a great big one. We had to hold the power line up out in front of our house for them to get underneath.
That work's done now, isn't it? I mean, they're not.
Yeah, it's done now.
That's done.
But I mean, Helen Avenue and 3rd Avenue, that's the truck route. That's the truck route. That's where Jerky and all them guys, that is the truck route.
Okay.
And all the freight comes in there. Yeah.
Rick, thank you for coming down tonight and sharing some of your thoughts and concerns.
Thank you for listening.
Is there anyone else here this evening that would like to address this issue? Yes, ma'am. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Marilyn McCollar, and I live on Harlem Avenue. I just have one question, and perhaps you can answer it. I do agree with Rick. We live next door to each other. The truck traffic is horrendous, and I think it needs to be addressed. But my real question is why is that area where Hebert's greenhouse is located residential? Nobody lives there, do they?
That was my question to Jeff. How did a greenhouse get there that many years ago?
Right.
But I have a feeling that it probably started happening and just continued to happen. I don't know. But I think it's been there many, many years.
I know it's been, well, I remember going past there when I was a kid out to the fair, but that's my question. So, you know, but
It was some planning commission a long time before us that didn't do their
okay.
job.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Is there anyone else here this evening that would like to address item number 13?
Jerry Jones. I live on the corner of Harlem and Madison. And I kind of concur with everything that Rick proposed.
You kind of agree with what they're saying? Truck traffic kind of the worst thing for you? All right. Thank you for coming down and speaking up. Yes, sir. Come on up.
Darwin Slutton, 2410 West Old Yankton Road. Regarding the two gentlemen who are concerned about the truck traffic and the lady as well, the new building that we put up there, our family, Sluttons, that is complete now. And the reason there's so much truck traffic right now, there is an access, of course, up to 2nd there. And I realize they're going straight north to Madison, but that's because Kiwanis is shut down right now. And it's our family's intention when Kiwanis opens back up again, and these trucks can go out that way, most of them will go that way. And we would hope we have another tenant that's interested in moving into this building, and it's our intention before they move in, and Kiwanis is open, which should be another week or so, that we can put up a barricade right there and get that truck traffic routed for a month or so, so they start getting used to Kiwanis again. And we'll eliminate a lot of that traffic that is flowing straight north to Madison Avenue there. I think that'll be an advantage to the residents up there. Just that note is all.
I remember when you came in, this picture is not showing that new building, is it? This picture up there is not showing the new building.
No, it does not show that new building. It's in that northeast corner on 2nd and Kiwanis there.
I know there was a lot of discussion at that time as to how that building would be used. The neighbors were concerned about traffic on 2nd.
Mm-hmm. And you're going to see that coming up in a later agenda item here. And I think that a lot of that is going to be alleviated as soon as that Kiwanis Avenue is done, and we're going to help.
There was some talk at that time. You own the rest of those buildings too, if I'm not mistaken, or don't you?
We own like 4 square blocks there with
I remember at
warehouses
that time there was talk about letting the trucks come in on Kiwanis, come through that parking lot to access that building. Is that still happening? Are you allowing that?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite understand you.
That driveway there on Kiwanis that comes in between those two buildings you can see, there was some talk at the time that you were going to allow trucks to come in there to access that new building that you were putting up. Is that still on the table?
Trucks can come in off Kiwanis in between our two buildings that exist there.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you for coming up and
thank you.
sharing that. Any other questions for Darwin? Is there anyone else here that would like to address item number 13? Seeing none, Jason, did you prepare, Jason, could you come back up for just a second? Would you know anything in regards to ordinances as far as freight trucks on residential streets? I'm just asked that. If you don't, I understand. That's not.
I haven't heard that, so we will definitely check on that and get back to the gentleman.
Appreciate that. If there's no other further discussion in regards to number 13, the chair would entertain a motion.
I move for approval of item 13.
We have a motion. Would there be a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion time. Larry, it looks like you want to say something. What are you thinking about this one?
I'm just having a concern of, I mean, we're having a lot of truck traffic going through that road. I mean, that's every single person that's came up has said the exact same thing. And I know if it's approved here, we have no control over that. And that's just a concern to me.
Well, I can see warehouses being built there, but it's how they fit in there as far as getting trucks in and out. Obviously, the best way would be through Madison.
Yep. I mean, if there's like a buffer or something in between that was put there, I mean, where the houses and the truck traffic wasn't there, I mean, I think it'd be okay.
Anyone else have any thoughts on this? Nick?
Mr. Chair, I appreciate the neighbors coming up and voicing their concerns, especially on the truck traffic, but I don't know that that's an issue that we have control over. No matter how you slice it, I think that's left up to ordinance and then the traffic engineers and whoever decides where the entrance and exits are from the property. I appreciate their concerns, and I think they need to follow up with the city staff to make sure that they can get their questions answered, but I don't see that as being part of anything we have control over. So I am going to support the motion.
I'm in the same, I'm going to concur, excuse me, I'm going to concur with Nick on this, is to provide any kind, the buffer that they talked about last night would have been good to have townhomes and something else, but I just don't see anything else being built here also, and a lot of it is already I-1 like commercial. I think it's a good fit.
John, what are you thinking?
Just looking at the way the comprehensive plan is headed and what we've talked about for compatibility of the area, I-1 seems the appropriate choice, which is what is currently in front of us.
Danny, you made the motion.
Right. I think basically, the way I look at it, it corrects a historical mistake. It's probably been, like you said, the same way for all these years. And I agree with the petitioner. I don't see anyone building a home there. So it should probably be officially I-1.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion will signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. Item number 14.
Item 14 is 2013-0702, rezone from RD Residential District to I-1 Light Industrial District for the development of allowed uses located at 731 North Harlem Avenue.
Now, the applicant for item 14 is Alan Leaders, and it's a rezoning for future development of allowed uses. This is a 2.23 acre site just south of the item you just considered. We gave it a compatibility rating of 3 because of the RD zoning, which would allow up to a fourplex by conditional use, putting it into a category of multifamily. In Category 3, we do have potential incompatibility, as has been discussed here just recently. And it does have to do primarily with access to the site. Existing street frontage is located at the intersection of North Harlem Avenue and West 2nd Street at the northeast corner of the property. The subject property is located 2 blocks south of West Madison, a minor arterial street, and 2 blocks west of North Kiwanis, also a minor arterial street. Currently, there are no access easements shared with adjacent industrial properties to the east, west, or south. No new street frontages are proposed with this application. The applicant has not indicated that they would subdivide the property. And a site development concept plan is not forthcoming. In the future, in order to minimize truck traffic through the neighborhood, staff would prefer to see new industrial development access limited from North Harlem Avenue and West 2nd Street, and shared access provided south to West 3rd or west to North Helen. However, we're not in control of that situation until and unless the applicant or a future developer would come in and work with the city street department, traffic, and so on to try to provide or consider those accesses as encouraged by staff and the neighborhood. There are no proximities to parks, open space, and schools. However, the city bike trail and the Big Sioux River Greenway are located 460 feet west. The subject property is generally flat and does have mature tree stands worth preserving. The drainage engineer indicated that a post-construction BMP will be required for development of this property. The subject property is also located in a neighborhood conservation area. According to the comprehensive plan, the West Sioux Neighborhood Conservation Area in shape Sioux Falls should be considered in future development of the property. The overall housing stock in this neighborhood, as indicated in the comprehensive plan, is in very good condition, with little conservation activity needed. Jane Addams Elementary School is the focal point of the neighborhood, and the neighborhood is adjacent to the arena and convention center complex, which can impact the neighborhood on occasion. Madison Street is an arterial street that goes through the neighborhood. Proposed zoning in this neighborhood is consistent with previously approved developments in the immediate vicinity for light industrial uses. The existing residential neighborhood has been reduced in size in past years from 198 residential lots to 126 residential lots by street vacations and rezonings to industrial use. So the current demand for uses in the neighborhood is obviously non-residential. It's the traffic issue that needs to be addressed or considered in your action this evening. Staff notes that an alternative to industrial zoning could be live-work under the new ordinance. It almost seems like a desirable consideration under the new ordinance, but however, we're not in that new ordinance, and the referendum is yet next year. However, the current, again, market is for non-residential development. The proposed rezoning would eliminate 2 of the 3 zoning boundaries which are currently shared by residential properties. So in effect, by rezoning the property to industrial, you're reducing the potential conflict in the neighborhood because the site is undeveloped. Submitted plan is complete for your review. There's not yet a site development concept proposed, and staff encourages the applicant or future developers to consider limiting their access to from existing residential streets in the West Sioux neighborhood. Because the application is consistent with the Shape Sioux Falls Comprehensive Plan, reducing potential land use conflicts by reducing shared zoning boundaries of potentially conflicting uses, staff is recommending approval of the rezoning. And again, the rezoning is going to be done by ordinance. Therefore, it has to go forward to the City Council. There will be a first reading where there's no public input, and there'll be a second reading then where public input would be considered. Planning Commission is just making a recommendation. Any future development of the property is going to have to comply with the zoning ordinance that we have in effect right now. Obviously, the future zoning ordinance could benefit a project like this. And now it's up to the Planning Commission to take action.
Well, thanks, Steve. Before you sit down, is this map accurate? I mean, is the only access to this property that top corner, that little cutout right there?
Currently, that's the only public street access that staff is aware of. Again, we're not aware of any shared access easements to the north, west, south, or east. So it's the corner that is there. It almost seems like a question for the applicant if how they intend to provide access to development in the future.
When you talk about what you'd like to see as a shared access, are you talking about with the neighbor to the north?
That's a possibility.
No.
That continues to be residential zoning, although it's a vacant property.
Steve, I guess that's a question. Mr. Chair.
Yes, Steve, please do.
Steve, that's a question. There will be a chunk of land between what we just rezoned and this area that is still zoned RD, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Steve? Seeing none, is the petitioner here?
My name is Alan Leaders, and I'm the owner of the land at 731 North Harlem. I also own the two buildings south of this land. You look at those two buildings there in the concrete parking lot in between them. I own that access off of 3rd Street. So I do have access to the back lot from 3rd Street.
Okay, good, thank you. That answers a question that I had. Do you have some plans for this particular piece, or what do you think?
Nothing specific, but I can tell you that I have a tenant that has all of one building and probably half of the other building. They would like more space right now, and if I had that zoned correctly, I would probably try to put a warehouse up there to accommodate them rather than lose the tenant because they haven't got enough room.
It appears to me if that were to happen, you would not need to have access on 2nd Avenue. You could have access on 3rd.
If that tenant took that building, I would not need access off of 2nd and Harlem. That's correct.
I think the neighbors would enjoy that. I think the neighbors would like that, Alan. Any other questions for Alan? Seeing none, thank you.
Okay.
Is there anyone else here this evening that would like to address item number 14?
Hi, Rick Larson, 900 North Harlem. I have no problem with him building a building there as long as that access is closed off there in the corner. If he comes in from 3rd Avenue, if it's all brought in from 3rd and there's no traffic from the corner there and stuff, we would be happy with that.
I don't think we can sit here and stop something like that, but I like the sound of it. I think particularly him owning those two to the north or to the south.
Yeah, and I guess that the only other thing would be is if it would be okay with the fire department if there was any questions, if they needed quicker access, but then it could be just, yeah.
You know, you bring up a point that he would have to address at the time of permitting.
That would be the only thing, but if it could be stopped where they used it only and that was it. But, I mean, yeah, if he puts a nice building there, it looks nice, and everything is accessed off of 3rd. If they come down Helen or come in Kiwanis onto 3rd, I have no problem with it, and I'm sure none of the neighbors do either.
Rick, we can't sit here and approve it subject to him doing that. I want you to know that.
I know, but yeah.
But I would think that could make sense for him and his tenant, quite frankly. Particularly if you find out something in regards to freight trucks and residential, if that could create some pressure for, help force that to happen.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Rick? Thank you, Rick. Anyone else have a comment or on item number 14? Seeing none, Chair would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve item 14.
Second.
We have a motion and a second discussion.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Nick.
Echo the same comments as the last one, that it seems pretty appropriate to be zoned industrial in that spot, and I would encourage the neighbors to keep following up on the truck and the traffic, and talk to city staff, and you can potentially go to the second reading at the city council to make sure that your questions are known to them too. I would encourage you to keep going down that path.
I feel a lot more comfortable when I find out he owns the two buildings to the south and could make it just part of his complex. He's got his access coming in off a third. Any other comments? Discussion?
That makes good sense to do this.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor will signify by saying yes.
Yes. Yes.
All opposed? Motion passes, Alan. Okay, now let's look here. I think item number 15 was deferred. Oh, and we moved eight.
Yeah,
We have 18 now.
We moved 18 after 14.
18 is 2013-0703 conditional use permit in I-1 Light Industrial District to allow retail trade and service located at 717 North Kiwanis Avenue.
Jason Bieber, City of Sioux Falls planning staff. This is a request by the Threads LLC, Sandy Delker Holbert. It's a conditional use in the I-1 zoning district for retail trade and service. The applicant is requesting approval in order to convert a nearly completed warehouse on this corner to retail trade and service, essentially for an indoor recreation facility. Is located at 717 North Kiwanis Avenue. The current land use of this particular property is warehouse. The submitted site plan does indicate an access onto West 12th Street. Additional accesses will not be granted onto North Kiwanis Avenue on the east. The proposed site has two warehouses, one existing and one near completion on the north. The near completed building appears to meet all the required setbacks. Variance was approved by the Zoning Board of Adjustment on July 15th, 2013 for a reduction in the parking standards from 140 parking spaces to 32 for a ratio of roughly one parking space for every 450 square feet of building area. The lot does contain the two warehouses, the one to the south that is completed, and then the one to the north where this application is for, adjacent to West 2nd Street. The conditional use standards are being met by reducing the need for large amounts of parking. Staff is encouraging the applicant to address pedestrian issues, and signage should be minimized as to this is not a convenience destination. Because this application has provided clarity to indicate the location, nature, and extent of the work proposed, staff does recommend approval of this conditional use permit with the following, recommends approval of this conditional use permit. And this particular request is a conditional use permit application. Conditional use permits are uses permitted within the zoning district with conditions. All conditional use permits must meet zoning and building codes. Conditional use approvals or denials are resolutions and are final unless appealed to the City Council. And that concludes staff presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
There was no stipulations. I'm trying to remember what you said about signage.
There wasn't any stipulations on there. That was something that didn't get removed on the staff report. It was a little bit of a typo. So,
okay. Any questions?
Mr. Chair?
Jason? Yes, Steve.
Jason, can you explain to us, we reduced the parking from 140 to 32 because it was going to be a warehouse and it wasn't going to be a lot of people. Now we're going to a retail. Can you explain to everyone how this still meets that standard?
The reduction in the parking was for the use that they are going forward tonight for the retail trade and service for the indoor recreation facility. And it is similar uses that that have been across the city, the new Avera building on Anchor Lane, have had similar requests for variances from the Board of Adjustment to get their parking somewhere down to 1 to 1,000. So this is actually quite a bit, there's quite a bit more parking than what has been previously approved for similar uses within the city.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that the public knew what was going on with this. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Jason? Thank you, Jason. Is the petitioner here this evening?
Good evening. My name is Sandy Delker-Holbert, and we are looking at occupying the corner of 2nd and Kiwanis, which is 717 North Kiwanis. And what we're proposing is a private membership-only youth girls softball club. So we don't need a ton of parking spots only because we're limited to the number of people that we will have in that building at any given time. We currently have 10 teams, which is about 10 girls on each on average. So at any given time, we can have 2 teams practicing, and that would be about 20 children. Most of our girls in the club are under the age of 14, I would say 85% of them, and those are non-driving, obviously. It is a drop-off by the parent, pick-up by the parent situation, and we don't foresee there being any truck traffic on that corner.
Sandy, what are your hours of operation? This will go year-round, 12 months a year?
You know what, it is year-round, but the heaviest season for us is the off-season when it's wintertime. We've got a lot of girls that can't practice outside, and so what we'll do is we will practice indoors. The hours are mainly Monday through Friday from 5:30 till about 10 p.m. at night, just because all the kids will be in school at that time. And then weekends we'll use the building anytime, I suppose, between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. on the weekends. So we're pretty much after business hours, considering a retail store.
It's not like a full field. I mean, this is a practice facility. It's not like you're having teams playing each other's or tournaments or such like that.
Nope. The building will be basically partitioned into 2 parts. There'll be 2 60 by 60 indoor fields, basically just for practice for grounders and things like that. And then there'll be batting cages and pitching lanes that kind of separate the 2 sides. So there will not be a public, you know, the public can't come and use it. You have to be part of the membership to go into the facility and use it.
I think you said Monday through Friday?
Monday through Friday from 5:30 to 10 p.m. and then full days on weekends. In the winters and rainy springs are the heavy time. During the summer, that's our busiest season. So we are not in that building very much during the summer because we're outside playing ball.
Sure. Thank you. Any questions for Sandy? Thank you. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else here this evening that would like to address item number 18? Rick? No. I'd like to, Heath, would you come up for a second? Heath is our traffic engineer and is here with us this evening. I had asked a question of staff yesterday. This change of usage like this, I know when this building was put in, access onto Kiwanis was not permitted.
Yes.
Does this change of usage change the ability to use Kiwanis as an in and out for this particular building, Heath?
Not really. It's an issue where geometrically we don't want another entrance that close to 2nd Street on Kiwanis Avenue, where it's an arterial street, and just to keep the flow up, we tried to limit how far the access points are from each other. So, you know, that's looking at the map, it's roughly just over 100 feet to the south of 2nd Street. We wouldn't want to put another access point at that location.
Okay, I can see that. I was hoping I could talk you into it, but I don't think that's going to happen, is it? Thank you for coming tonight. It's good to see you. Have we closed public testimony? I think. Is there anyone else that would like to address this issue? Seeing none, Chair would entertain a motion on item number 18.
Mr. Chair, I make a Motion to approve item number 18.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I think this is anytime that we can keep kids active, I think this is a great venue. I'm not a softball player. I played baseball, but again, anytime we can keep kids active, I think this is a great venue.
I think when you and I grew up, we played on the corner. I don't think we thought of playing
in that vacant lot next door.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. Any other comments?
I would just echo what Steve just said. It's another opportunity to give kids something to do. That's good.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed? Sandy, motion passes. That brings us to item number 16.
Do we read deferred items or no?
Oh, okay.
We're on 15, but do we read items that are deferred or we don't?
No.
Okay.
Been deferred.
Item 16 is 2013-07-15 major amendment in sub-area C, Willow Run Plan Development District to change regulations and boundaries located north of East Arrowhead Parkway and east of 6 Mile Road.
Now, the applicant here this evening is Eric Willitson of Willitson Lund Engineering, and the owner is Thomas Walsh, All in Golf LLC. Now, the purpose of this request is to subdivide the property for development of additional single-family residential dwelling units. It is currently zoned in a planned development district. The underlying zoning does allow residential uses. They would like to increase the density of those uses. It's a 6.9-acre site. It's sub-area C of Willow Run PD. And we have a compatibility rating of 5 on all sides because of the open space and the golf course, and because the property adjacent to the east is also zoned RS2 single-family residential. The Willow Run Planned Development District was created by the County Commission in 1989 for mixed land uses, and the area was annexed in 2006, and that did retain the zoning as established in the county. A major amendment was approved in this sub-area in May of 2008 to adjust the sub-area boundaries to allow future residential development, and this request is a further refinement of that effort. I've included in your staff report the existing regulations and standards of the Willow Run Planned Development District for this sub-area, which does address the current allowing of residential uses of a larger lot size. The applicant would like to increase density by reducing the lot sizes allowed by going to an underlying zoning district of RS2, similar to the zoning that is to the east. Therefore, the new sub-area regulations are proposed to be in a new sub-area for the planned development district. We call this sub-area G, and we would, the major amendment would be to add sub-area G to the planned development sub-area regulations that currently exist around the golf course. This new sub-area G would reference the regulations as indicated in your staff report for parking, accessory uses, uses permitted, density, area, yard, and height, and other regulations. Similar to what is there or existing already in the existing sub-area, the only change really is the density to RS2. Same type of dwellings uses allowed as previously allowed. There is a single point of access to East Torchwood Lane. The physical characteristics of the rolling hills with steep topography, pronounced drainage patterns, and mature trees worth preserving. The fire department did indicate that if you are going to have more than 31 and 2 family units constructed, that there has to be a secondary access provided. The applicant should address that requirement. There is no limit on private roads as far as the length of a cul-de-sac. However, the fire department does want to have a turnaround provided within that private road, and the applicant is indicating that. As far as the comprehensive plan is concerned, development of allowed residential uses in conjunction with a golf course recreational use is consistent with the original plan for development of Willow Run PD. At a gross density, development proposed to increase from 0.9 units per acre to 1.6 units per acre. which is far less than what you would normally see in an urban development. Shape Sioux Falls generally supports increased density of development adjacent to open space amenities and compatible with similar neighborhood uses. A preliminary subdivision plan application is also on tonight's agenda and would go forward with the rezoning to the council for final approval. Transfer or development of subarea C residential lots could not happen until that final development engineering plans were developed to address engineering design standards for drainage and for access. Also, zoning would take a look at the minimum lot frontages, lot sizes, and setbacks before approving any building permits in the area. The submitted application is complete for review by the Planning Commission, and the development concept plan submitted for subarea G requires further review as a preliminary subdivision plan application. That preliminary plan is not being approved with this major amendment, only the increased densities allowed by the RS2. And then, just to clarify, also a major amendment is similar to rezoning in that it does have to go forward with a recommendation from the Planning Commission to the City Council for first and second readings. It does have to conform to all the requirements of the preliminary subdivision plan ordinance and engineering design standards for development of the street and lots. With that, then we're on to Planning Commission action.
Steve, did I hear you had received a letter in regards to this?
We have. That's correct. Thank you for reminding me.
Could you share with everybody what...
That letter is included or was included in your addendum. And if I can find my addendum. Addendum there.
And I believe the letter was it from a neighbor?
It was from a neighbor in the development, that's correct. Development to the east. In fact, we had 2 points of correspondence with neighbors. We had one come in today as a citizen request stating, "We are residents of 1105 South Torrey Pine Lane. We are concerned with the proposed zoning change from residential to residential density on Torchwood. I believe we have some neighbors in attendance tonight that are going to speak on their behalf,
okay,
as they are representing the neighborhood. And the concerns have to do with the length of the cul-de-sac and the increased density being compatible with density that's already established in that neighborhood."
All right, thank you. Any questions for Steve? Thank you, Steve. Is the petitioner here this evening?
My name is Troy Little. I am filling in for Eric today with Willardson Lawn Engineering. I'm representing a Willow Run Golf Course, and Tom Walsh is actually...
Did you say Troy?
Troy.
Troy, thank you.
Mr. Walsh is in our presence tonight, too.
Okay. Usually Eric does these things. Is he ill tonight? Is he not?
We'll pretend that. He's out of town.
There might be some neighbors here tonight. There is some concern about the density, increase in the density here. I know you guys, is there anything you can add to what staff has reported to us in regards to this? Is this going to be a hard piece of ground to develop?
No. The development is, the rezoning is going to be basically the same zoning as what's around to the north and to the east. And the lots are similar in size. They are also going to be single-family residential, detached. The only issue we do have is Torchwood Lane. The pavement was stopped 50 feet short of the property line, and that would need to be addressed at some point too.
Well, that'll be, I suspect, between you and the developer of the
Arbor's Edge.
Arbor's Edge, I would think. Thank you. Any questions for Troy? Thank you, Troy. Is there anyone here this evening that would like to visit with us about number 16? Yes, sir. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Corey Clute. I live on the corner of Sugar Maple and Torchwood on the north side. I'm also representing Marlon and Leslie Waltner that sent the letter, and they live adjacent across the street from myself. So just a couple of concerns that we have in regards to development, as mentioned, the density. When we purchased our lots, we're under the understanding that there were going to be 7 lots developed there, and now the density's obviously increased to 11, of which on the frontal part of the lots, they get to be quite narrow. You know, they're 50 foot on the front on some of them, and there's only a couple of them that are actually over 70 foot. Whereas compared to the Arbor's Edge development, many of those lots are 80 foot and greater on the front. So it's obviously going to restrict the size of the homes that could be able to be placed on those lots, as well as the curb appeal of those. So there's some concerns about the property value and how it might impact the adjacent homes in Arbor's Edge development. And then also specifically to address the cul-de-sac link, as mentioned, maybe it doesn't apply since it's a private driveway, but in the Chapter 8 of the Street Design and Pavement Thickness, Section 8.7.6, it states that the cul-de-sac link should be a minimum of 500 feet. In this development, it's roughly double that. So just something to consider as well. So we would be asking maybe just to consider, the number of lots and reducing it, or provide additional market research suggesting the value of the lot and home sizes are in line with adjacent homes in the Arbor's Edge development, as well as maybe evaluating the feasibility of an access point to the north to help with traffic flow through that area. I don't have any more questions.
So when you bought your property, you did some research in what you were told, or?
There was a flyer that, and perhaps Mr. Walsh can speak to that more specifically, but there was a flyer that actually had the layout of the 7 lots that were previous. I don't know if they were subdivided or firmed up, but there were 7 lots laid out in that development, or proposed development at that time.
Any questions for this young fellow?
Mr. Chairman, how long, if I might, how long ago was this?
We moved in October of 2010. Or excuse me, 2011. Sorry.
2 years.
So it would have been at that time. Prior to that, I'm not sure what was communicated, but.
Any other questions for this young man? Thank you for coming down tonight. Is there anyone else here that would like to address this issue?
Tom Walsh, again, rest of you. I talked to both Corey and Marlon last night and went over some of the details of it. At the time that the former owner was, I think when Corey bought it, he was in bankruptcy at the time, and obviously I ended up getting stuck picking up the golf course because of doing some guarantees for him. We've invested quite a bit of money into Willow Run, and I think along with our Burger King restaurants, I think we've got a pretty good track record of doing what's right and doing it first class. This is no exception. We're looking at doing, whether you call them villas or townhouses, but they'll be in that 1,800 to 3,000 square feet. We're looking at a minimum price of probably not less than 150,000, but probably more likely in that 200,000 plus. A number of them will be in that 2.25 to 275. I talked to Eric Harms, who is the real estate rep for Arbor's Edge. They currently have a house under construction along that same ridge. They were asking $209,000, and they sold it for $190,000. We're going to do an association. We're going to have restrictions as far as what's going to be there. The market that we've worked with Tony Rochford on is, like most of us older guys, empty nesters that don't need 2 levels, don't need big houses, that probably take away for a couple months and hopefully go south. So the need for, when you look at that location, it's a lifestyle type thing. It isn't, I can't envision a lot of children there unless they're grandchildren visiting. We've also put in an area where we will have a golf path, walking path from the Arbor's Edge area down to the Willow Run, where we're going to do some major work that you guys will be addressing probably later this year. I went through, I think, with both Marlon and Corey, all of these things. I went out there this afternoon to kind of check on it. The one issue that Troy talked about is that 50 feet, when Parappa was approved to do the development out there, what they were supposed to do is do a cul-de-sac in that 50 feet area. They've got 2 what I guess are called drops for sewer or water that are in existence, but they were never held to finish in that. So ideally there would be a cul-de-sac there and then continue on. The cul-de-sac that we have up on the north, it's that size and distance because for fire trucks to be able and emergency vehicles to do a turnaround. We were working with the Arbor Edge people before the current owners took possession, and we're going to do some things, and working with the new ownership has been very challenging, to say the least. We've had 4 handshake deals on things, and all 4 of them he's reneged on. So I think, well, I'll guarantee you the properties will be something everybody will be proud of, and it's one of the last areas in Sioux Falls where it has the terrain that you can have develop some really nice home sites. Questions?
Tom, good to see you. Thanks for coming down. Obviously, you looked at this and said, hey, there's 7 lots here that you could sell or develop that these fellows thought were going to be there. But you feel there's a better market for doing this villa-type situation?
Well, when you look at the steepness of from where they are down to the golf course, it doesn't lend itself, we believe, to, say, young children in that. I think when we look at the market, that when we did the studying of it, it's for people like us, the older ones, that don't have kids, that want the views and the accessibilities, but no raking, no shoveling, no painting, lock it up and go down to Arizona or wherever for a couple months. I've lived in a number of developments in Arizona, Florida, and Mexico, where this type of lifestyle is high-end, the finishes are high-end, and the demand for quality of both services and finishes are up there.
Will these be slab-on grades, or you have basements on these? Are you that far yet?
They're going to have both capabilities. There's a number of the lots where I think slab-on grade makes sense. There's some of the other ones, like the end ones, where you've got the grade going down, where it makes sense if they wanted to do a walkout type thing. One thing I would say is, I think it's lot number 6, which is right on the 2 down there, that one. That one might go away. It's kind of, as far as the depth of it, the rest of them have pretty good depth. But that one just working with Eric and Troy this morning, just looking at it, that may go away, but I'm not going to promise it. But
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Tom?
thank you.
Seeing none, thank you. Is there anyone else here this evening that would like to address this particular item? Seeing none, Chair would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd move approval of item 16.
We have a motion. Would there be a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Danny, you made the motion. Give us your thinking here. What are we going to tell these two young fellows and this family over there that thought there were going to be 7 lots and now it's going to be different?
It was a situation, as I understand it, where the previous owner did go belly up, and I believe it's the prerogative of the new owner to do some different things. And it looks, from what we see and what we've heard, that it's certainly not going to be a shabby type of development. I think it's going to be a very nice development. And I really would find it hard to believe that their concerns about property values are even founded. I think they're going to be just fine.
Larry, you're a realtor here in Sioux Falls. What do you think?
I feel the same way. I think if they'd probably make more money off of bigger lots than they would smaller lots. And there must be a reason why, based on depth-wise, they can't get that size of house there. So they're trying to use what they can there. And it makes perfect sense because, I mean, we've got villas that we sell that it'll surprise you who actually will buy them. Because I think a lot of people right now want the HOA where everything's taken care of.
It's a unique spot there on that particular hole. I've played that hole. I've been up on that hillside many times, Tom. I don't
want to be up
there. I think I've got some golf balls up there if you find them. But it's kind of a unique site. I think, as I remember, I think they're going to have some tremendous views.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think? Is we saying anything that anybody disagrees with?
No, Mr. Chair, not to beat a dead horse, but I would agree with everything they've said.
Fellas, I hope you can understand and not get too upset with this particular project. Being somebody of that age, something like this appeals to me, but all right. Say we've had a motion, we've had a second. Nick, yes?
Just a smart aleck comment that you might make them more upset now if it appeals to somebody like you.
Yeah. Oh, thanks a lot. Tom, I want you to stick around after the meeting. We'll talk.
And I'll be happy to work with those. I've met with all the neighbors. I think we've got a pretty good track record of making people around us happy.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed? Motion passes. Oh, what's our next item?
We're on 21 because it got moved to after 16.
Okay.
So item 21 is 2013-0714 preliminary subdivision for Willow Run Addition located north of East Arrowhead Parkway and east of 6 Mile Road.
This is the subdivision plan for the item just approved for the major amendment. It'll go forward with the major amendment to action by the City Council. The applicant and owner are listed as the same size property, same layout as you have just considered with lot sizes, frontages, and access. Development engineering plans now have to comply with respective chapters of the adopted engineering design standards in the final grading and drainage plan, final utility plan, and the groundwater control plan shall be approved or disapproved within 15 working days after submittal to the city engineer. In addition, a final lot and block layout shall be approved by the city engineer and city director of planning and building services as required by the ordinance. If these plans are approved, the developer may then submit plats for approval, transfer and ownership. Because the preliminary subdivision plan application is complete and offers coordination of urban infrastructure and fosters efficient and orderly urban growth, staff is recommending approval of the preliminary subdivision plan. Preliminary subdivision plans do have to comply with the regulations of the subdivision ordinance, and so concerns about utilities, street design, access, and so on will have to be complied with in getting approval. We can't go forward with development of the property until those conditions are met. All subdivision plans and engineering plans have to go through that, and accompanying the major amendment, the preliminary plan approvals or denials are resolutions and will be sent forward with the major amendment. Planning Commission action.
Steve, thank you. Would there be any questions for Steve?
Steve, just one quick question. Not to put any pressure on Tom or anything like this, but if we approve this and he elects to take Lot 6 out, do we have to, does it come back to us then? No, it does not. Okay.
No, that would likely occur in a final engineering plan scenario, and those don't come back to the Planning Commission.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. The petitioner.
Troy Little, Bullets Lawn Engineering.
Troy, when do you envision this project getting off the ground? Are you guys trying to get this going before winter, or?
That I would have to refer to Tom. Yes.
We'll have to.
Yesterday.
Okay. Any other questions for this young fellow? Thank you, Troy.
One of the issues that they brought up was the traffic there, and one of the questions we talked about was, and I think it's correct, if you have a cul-de-sac with no outlet, it probably deaders people from going in there versus having a through street. So I think that'll, if we end, and I'll go, if we can get something worked out with Vakurovich to do a street, I'm happy to do it. If we can't, the cul-de-sac, I have no problem with.
Tom, the real estate in Larry and I, are you developing this, or are you just developing the lots for resale, or are you actually going to do the project?
We've got Grand Arbor out on Southwestern, which we've developed ourselves. My son-in-law, we have Lifestyle Builders along with my son, and I think to control the quality, I think we're going to probably keep control of the construction as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any
questions?
other questions for Tom? Thank you, Tom. Is there anyone else here that would like to talk about this particular subdivision plan? If not, Chair would entertain a motion regarding item number 21.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve item 21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor will signify by saying yes.
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 Motion passes. 21 passes.
Now we're back to 17. Is that okay? 2013-0612, conditional use permit in C2 General Commercial District to allow motor vehicle display and sales located at the southeast corner of West 18th Street and South Spring Avenue.
This petition was deferred at the last Planning Commission meeting to allow the applicant time to put together plans that would address city ordinances and additional information for your consideration. That has been provided, is included in your information packet, and staff is satisfied that they have conformed. We did include, for assurance sake, a letter in your addendum that was passed out tonight from the applicant stating that they will conform to the minimum requirements of the zoning ordinance for setbacks and landscaping and paving. The plan that they have submitted addresses that and would go forward to a building permit process that's reviewed by Zoning and Building Services for conformance with those items. Therefore, staff is recommending approval based on that fact, the plan submitted, and the assurance from the applicant that they would conform to the minimum requirements. Because the application has provided clarity to indicate location, nature, and extent of the work proposed, staff is recommending approval. We've had no other calls from people in the neighborhood. And conditional use permits, again, do have to conform to the requirements of the zoning ordinance for minimum standards, design standards in the neighborhood. It's a resolution, does not go forward to the city council. It is approved here this evening, and unless appealed, becomes effective. Planning Commission action.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for that report. Would there be any questions for Steve? Is the petitioner here this evening?
First of all, I apologize for walking in late. I was driving around my car waiting till 7. I thought it was at 7, so at least I got lucky and was at the end. So, but my name is Mike Schulte with Schulte Subaru here in town, and if you guys have driven past that corner, since Davis Dry Cleaning went out 15 years ago or so, it's been just a vacant lot, and the hospital bought it up a long time ago with a bunch of other property, and we've worked out a deal with them to be able to improve the lot and use it. So I think it will beautify the corner greatly and enhance, our display as well.
So, Mike, you're leasing the property? Or
Correct.
You're just renting it?
Yep. They do not have any interest in keeping the property. They want some property we have to the south, so they are leasing it to us for nothing with 10-year down the road, hopefully swapping some stuff. So.
Okay. Any questions for Mike? Thank you for coming down this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else here to address item number 17? Seeing none, Chair would entertain a motion regarding item number 17.
Mr. Chair, I'll move for approval.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'll just say thank the applicant for going through the complete plan. We appreciate that, and I think it's a good thing you have going there.
All right. All in favor will signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed? Motion passes, Mike.
Item 19 is 2013-0705, conditional use permit in C2 General Commercial District to allow on-sale alcohol located at 2505 West Russell Street.
Jason Bieber, Sioux Falls planning staff. This is an application by Vikash Patel for an on-sale alcohol establishment. The applicant would like to construct an addition to the existing food and fuel building to be used as an on-sale alcohol establishment. It is located at the southeast corner of West Russell Street and North Kiwanis Avenue. It is about 0.63 acres in size. The compatibility chart does indicate compatible uses to the south and to the east. However, the compatibility chart does not give a compatibility rating for commercial uses adjacent to uses zoned RC, recreational conservation. However, in the instance of an on-sale alcohol establishment adjacent to a sensitive use, there would be a significant conflicts and incompatibilities based upon the standards listed below in the conditional use standards. And they are: 1, will not create an undue concentration of similar uses; 2, it is not in an area where unattended children could be expected to frequent, patronize, or recreate; and 3, it is incompatible with characteristics of surrounding uses and not injurious to surrounding properties. The current use of the property is a convenience store with gas pumps. It is located within 75 feet of Elmwood Park to the west, 250 feet from Elmwood Golf Course to the north, and roughly 1,000 feet from Jane Addams Elementary School to the south. The food and fuel building currently sits in the southeast corner of the property with the fuel pumps and canopy adjacent to the northwest. The proposed addition is required the standard 25-foot front and 25 and 20-foot front yard setbacks and 0-foot side and rear yard setbacks in the C2 zoning district. The existing building and proposed on-sale alcohol establishment does require 16 parking spaces. The site plan the applicant has submitted is indicating 19 parking spaces, which does exceed the requirements of the ordinance. The proposed 550 square foot addition will be attached on the southwest corner of the building and have its own entrance. Staff finds the proposed addition to the existing food and fuel building for the purpose of an on-sale alcohol establishment has several incompatibilities with the existing neighborhood. The proposed on-sale alcohol establishment could be a place where unintended children frequent because of the close proximity to the park to the west and the elementary school to the south. Further, the proposed use is incompatible with the adjacent sensitive uses to the west, Elmwood Park, and the elementary school to the south. Finally, this could be the first convenience store with gas pumps to have an attached on-sale alcohol establishment. Each site will need to be reviewed, but determinations made based upon a proximity to children uses, impacts of surrounding properties, and concentration of uses alcohol associated with the service station. Because the proposed on-sale alcohol establishment does have conflicts and incompatibilities with the adjacent sensitive land uses, staff recommends denial of this application. However, if the Planning Commission would vote to approve this application, the following stipulations should be added. 1, a security management plan to be approved by the police department. 2, signage advertising alcohol to be prohibited facing Kiwanis Avenue. And 3, approval for this applicant only. And this also is a conditional use permit. Conditional uses are permitted within the zoning district with conditions. All conditional use permits must meet zoning and building codes, and conditional use approvals or denials are resolutions and are final unless appealed to the City Council. And I did receive one call from, I believe, the manager of the Arena Motel expressing his non-supportive of this type of use, and I believe he was going to be here tonight to the meeting. So, and I will answer any other questions.
Jason, thank you for that report. Would there be any questions of Jason?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Steve.
Jason, it was said it in here too, but we currently do not have any convenience stores with on sale attached to them that we know of, right?
Not that I can think of that aren't in multi-tenant retail buildings.
Okay.
There are a couple. I think there's one on West 12th that is in a 3 or 4 tenant building with one of them as the cart or the whatever that cart convenience store or grocery store is called.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Jason? Thank you, Jason. Is the petitioner here this evening?
Good evening. My name is Vikash Patel. I'm the owner of the Food and Fuel. I would like to point out a couple of things that Justin has just read on the report that was sent to me. There is more than a couple of stores in Sioux Falls that do have gas station and casino. The one that's on the 68th Street by I-229, there is a Sinclair gas station that has Hot Stuff Foods, and it is one whole building that also has a casino on facing I-229 and 68th Street on the corner. But it's the same building, as well as on the 12th Street, which is also BP gas station that has a Snickers chicken, casino in the middle, and the gas station. One of the other things that I was compelled to file for this conditional use permit was I have recently also found out that Falls Landing in Sioux Falls Park is serving alcohol. That is 10 times more visited by kids who pride on serving 15 to 20 different kinds of ice creams. I have been there with my kids, and majority of the people visiting Sioux Falls Park were kids at the time that I've been there, and we were in line getting ice cream, and several other people were getting beer. So I don't know. I just sort of need to have an understanding as to why Falls Landing Restaurant is serving alcohol.
I wouldn't try to explain that. You bring up a good point. I think that was very heavily debated and discussed at the council level. I don't believe that was ever addressed to us, was it, Jeff? Oh, it was? I guess it was. It's a good question. You know.
Also, the other point that I do have is the school that is being mentioned, it's actually quite far from where the gas station is. The park across the street where there is baseball diamonds, there's less than 15 to 20 games annually played there. We are also known as more of a tourist, if you will, business, because there is no other gas station on that exit. So everybody's coming to us from the major freeway, which is I-29, rather than the neighborhood.
I went out and looked at your operation last Saturday. You were very busy.
Well, thank you.
I think the cars were coming in and out. There was people going in and out. There was a lot of traffic there. Business is good for you, I'm sure. I hope. Appears to be.
Yes.
Does anybody have any questions for this gentleman? Any comments? Anything they want to share with you?
Mr. Chair,
Any?
I think I would agree with the petitioner that school is on the same street. That's true. But it's not as if it was just across the street or a few hundred feet away. It's a goodly distance. I don't know that we have standards. If we do, I don't think we've gone as far as 1,000 feet before we raised our eyebrows about such a situation. 300 feet, we've had several issues of that, but never 1,000 since I've been on this board. So I would tend to agree with the petitioner. That is quite a ways from his business.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Thank you, my friend.
I'd also like to state one more thing, that this building would also encompass a double door entry, so the kids would not be able to enter into that building to begin with.
Thank you. Is there anyone here this evening that would like to address item number 19?
Tim Nicolai, my family and I own the Arena Motel at 2401 West Russell Street. This store is basically considered the neighborhood store for that neighborhood, and there is a lot of traffic of children and stuff in and out of that store. But that's not the only concern I've got here. The other thing is we're showing parking spots as being in front of the gas pumps. I don't think driving and filling with fuel and using on-sale alcohol go hand in hand, and I wouldn't think that the owner of this property is going to let people using one part of his business block his gas pumps from doing other part of business. So I do kind of dispute the number of parking spots that are available on the property. And I don't feel that it's a good fit. You know, he does a good business there. He is a good neighbor to us otherwise. The other thing is he's running another business with a sandwich shop there, which also, you know, again, the traffic in and out, is there actually enough spots on this property to support all the activities that he's suggesting for his property?
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for coming down. Any questions for Tim? You're good. Is there anyone else here this evening that wanted to address item number 19? Seeing none.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to bring staff back up, please. Mr. Schmidt, again, the 19 parking spots, I guess I was not paying a lot of attention until it was brought up by Mr. Nikolai, but I count 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, one of which is a handicap parking spot, and then the other, well, there might be one over here on the far side there, so there's might be 7. Do the parking spots alongside of the, where they show the cars alongside of the pumps, gas pumps, constitute true parking?
I should have waited like last night until the question was asked to come to the podium. So Jason was pulling up the ordinances so he could state the ordinances, and so he'll speak in regards to the parking issues.
Okay.
Jeff, he brings up a point about Falls Park.
Yep.
And I know that was a very debated.
It's a planned development district, Falls Park Overlook Cafe Planned Development District, where they listed the types of uses. In parks, we don't allow restaurants. We don't allow on sale or off sale, and they brought a PD in and they allowed that. We've also done it at Sherman Park and Harmon Park. Again, it was very interesting and somewhat controversial when you allow on sale. So this is a great issue to bring forward to this body when you say, is it a concern to have on sale? It's not necessarily the school. The school's an issue, but there's a park, as Jason mentioned, 75 feet away. It's this gas station's in the park. So it's that proximity that we're concerned about. And I think generally you go unsupervised children. Can unsupervised children go in there and get alcohol? Off sale, on sale, that's the issue that we've always struggled with. Jason also read to you the conditions and issues. The conditional use standard says concentration of uses, unsupervised children being able to access this. That was our concern and that we raised. And then this applicant also brought, and I said, well, do you have that same concern and issue at the other parks where you've allowed on sale? Well, it got passed at other locations. On this one, we raised the issue. It was a concern, but it doesn't necessarily mean you can't approve it. And again, that's how Jason wrote his staff report. If you do this, what do you want to look at? What conditions shall you place on this applicant?
Thank you, Jeff. Did that answer your question, Steve? Oh, wait a minute.
Mr. Chair, Jeff, one other question. Could an additional condition such as on sale maybe only sold within the confines of the casino? Is that a condition that could be put on, and legally would that stand up? Or is it, if you approve it conditionally for this location, does it fit the whole thing?
It's a good question. And I believe you could state that, okay? We've, in the past, stated that this is for this applicant only, for this facility only, so you could say for this new tenant finish only. And again, the applicant is building this specifically for this, so you would generally be able to do that. The issue we always look at, and again, Sean is not here tonight, our zoning enforcement officer, you look at it and go, is it enforceable? You know, and you go, so is he only going to be able to sell it there? Again, you look at it, and I haven't pulled up the building plans, but the applicant seems to, has already explained to it, look, this is a standalone building. You should be able to enforce it also. So first blush, you know, could you be able to say it's for the new building only as a condition? It seems like you could be able to pretty easily and enforce it.
Thank you.
Yep.
As the parking question, I'm not finding it in the ordinance, so I know it's either maybe an interpretive bulletin or it's in there somewhere that I can't find at this moment. all gas stations, we have counted spaces on either side of the pump as parking spaces, as required parking spaces. And I know the applicant has been down to the zoning department and has talked to the zoning enforcement officers about those parking spaces before we brought them to the planning commission meeting. But I can find that info for you and get it to you.
Kind of seems like it'd be a way of kind of skirting the rules just a little bit to count those as parking spots, but
It's an exception in the ordinance.
Or really gas stations and convenience stores, when you think about it, that you're parked there and you're using, and so that's your parking space, and then we took it literally in this.
thank you. Did that help, Steve? Did that,
Yeah, that answered.
confused more?
Well, no, I'm not confused anymore. And like Jeff and Jason just said, it's not logical to me to count that as a parking space. But yes, I do pull up to the gas pump, I park, I walk in, I pay for my food, I get my candy bar and stuff. Now I'm going to park at that gas station, go in and have a couple beers, or at that gas pump and have a couple beers. That
pump's tied up then.
That pump is tied up. So that's why I said logically it's not there, but if that's the ordinance, then that's what we're living with then, yes. So that answered my question.
Thank you, Jason. Where were we? I was looking for a motion, I think. Is there any, I think I asked it. Was there anyone else here that wanted to address this particular issue? I don't think so.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'll go out on a limb.
Oh, boy.
And move approval with the 3 stipulations as recommended by staff. The 3 are the security management plan approved by the police department, signage, advertising, alcohol to be prohibitive, and approval for this applicant and this applicant only.
We have a motion. Would there be a second?
I'll second.
We have a second, which gives us an opportunity for some discussion on this one, so thank you for the motion. This one needs a little discussion, I think.
Yes, it does. Well, as I mentioned about the school earlier, I'm a little hung up on the Falls Park situation, too. That is a park, and there's a park across the street. At Falls Park, we have an establishment within the park selling alcoholic beverages. So I don't know, do we create a double standard here if we deny this? That's the question that's going through my mind.
That's a good question. I mean, that's a good thought. Nick, what do you think?
I'm struggling the same way Commissioner Pearson is. Although I think I would like to amend the motion to add a 4th stipulation that any on-sale alcohol sales be confined to the casino area, the new part under construction.
Thank you. I've forgotten that, but I would have approved his amendment to my motion.
Steve, what do you think about this? Nick.
Point of clarification, we have a motion on the table, so I think we'd need a second before any.
And a second.
Yeah.
And we have a second.
And if your motion needs a second, I will second it, so we can vote on the amended portion and then go back to the original.
All in favor of the amended motion will signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed?
Now we're back to the motion as amended.
So we're back to the motion. So
I was confused, so I was opposed. I voted yes to oppose that because I'm confused of where we're at with this.
We're at the original motion with Commissioner Sershin's amendment, and that passed. So now we're voting on the motion as amended.
Okay. So it still passed. So even with my no vote, so on the first one. So okay. Yeah, the amendment did. The amendment did. Okay. Yeah, and I'm gonna. My concern still is I just have that issue with the parking. I mean, maybe it's not a real concern, but, and I do agree that I'm struggling with this. The school, that's my background. is 1,000 feet away, that we've never addressed anything that far. You know, it's always been 500 feet or less. And so I don't have an issue with that part of it. The closeness to the park, again, we have one in Falls Park. Unattended children, I don't know what the neighborhood is around there. Those would be the unattended children, because if you're bringing your children to a softball game or something, or baseball game over there, they're not unattended. You're not leaving them. There's somebody watching them. So those kids normally would not be running across Kiwanis to come into the store. So my struggle mainly is, and as I've been on the commission, it has always been an issue with me, is parking. Not enough parking. But this meets I just wanted to express this, is that this meets the standard based on the existing laws, so.
I wonder what the new people feel, the two new guys.
Well, as I look at this, Chair, you know, this is a unique condition to put a casino and an on-sale alcohol facility next to a convenience store. For me, that's what the difference here between this and Falls Park is. It's a different type of function. And of course, this is right next door to a testing facility as well for truck drivers, I believe. Isn't that where Michael's used to be?
License,
right.
Department of Motor Vehicles.
And so an on-sale alcohol facility adjacent to what is considered a short-stop convenience store, which is why I believe the extra spaces are counted as part of the count. It's counting, you know, the typical stay of 5 or 10 minutes, not a couple of hours at a video lottery machine. And so I am disinclined to agree with the approval of this particular application.
Larry, your turn.
Yeah. Well, I'm just looking at Falls Landing. They have, you know, casino machines there. Correct?
At Falls Landing at the
Don't they
restaurant?
have a little section where they have video lottery
Boy,
machines?
I don't know. I'm
pretty sure they have one off to the side.
You're thinking of a Falls Landing is the restaurant bar that's in the Country Inn and Suites. What they're talking about is Falls Park, the actual park area with the new restaurant there.
Okay. Then on that, yeah.
You know, this almost feels like one the council's going to hate me. This almost feels like one I'd like to see go to council and have them kind of debate it out a little bit and
Something to do.
to answer some of his questions. And I think no matter a conditional use, unless appealed, you have 5 days to appeal it. If it's appealed, goes to council. And the council also takes a look at it. But it has to be appealed. Now, with approval, could a neighbor, could this gentleman that come up is concerned, could he appeal it? Then it goes to council. So either way, whatever we do, it has that opportunity. And
Final say is the council.
I'm sorry?
The final say is the council.
Yes, the final say is the council. We've had a good discussion. I know this one feels, I'm not sure how to feel about this one, but I'm going to ask for the vote here. Unless anyone has anything further to add. Seeing not, we have a motion. All in favor will signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed?
No.
No, or yes.
Now you guys have confused me. All in favor, once again, raise your right hand. All in favor. We have 3 in favor. All opposed? We have 2 opposed. Motion passes with
Stipulations.
the 4 stipulations. And I hope I've explained to everybody, if you're not in agreement with what we've done, it is appealable to the city council. That has to be done within 5 days.
And that's a pretty easy,
Oh, yeah.
just a statement to appeal, correct? Okay.
Have we went through everything?
No, item 20 is a deferred item. Item 20 is the last item, and that's a deferred item.
All right, so do we have to do anything with it?
You're the boss.
No, it's deferred.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to adjourn.
I second.
We have a motion to adjourn in a second. All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn is passed.
Yeah, well, that's all right.